Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad.
I'm Miguel.
And Sunday night's season 1 finale of HBO's The Last of Us featured Joel on an absolute rampage in order to save Ellie from an inevitable yet incredibly meaningful death. And it's an impossible choice to make given all that those characters have been through together throughout the course of the season and what Ellie's potential death could mean for the entire human race. But if you've listened to the official podcast for The Last of Us, which I really, really encourage you to go do, it's an awesome listen. It's hosted by Troy Baker, who played Joel in the video game, and who also played James, I believe was his name, the dude that Ellie
Troy Baker.
whacks with the cleaver when they're trying to eat her, and she yells that she's infected with David. But Neil Druckmann,
would you say that she's tainted meat?
Yeah, that I thought the same thing. I was like, I thought
thinking,
that
I
episode
was
of The Walking
thinking
Dead,
the same thing.
the
I was like
terminus thing.
I was hoping her to
Yep.
pull the whole thing and be like,
Bob.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bob.
yeah.
R.I.P. Bob.
But the difference was they actually ate Bob. Literally, actually ate him. Ellie was trying to get them to not eat her.
Bro, like, old boy was dead ass on the fence though. So
He straight up was. But on the Last of Us podcast, Neil Druckmann spoke about the inspiration behind the morally divisive conclusion of the story. And this is going back to the video game, and I'll let you seek out the details of that conversation on your own, because like I said, that podcast is a really great listen. Julia and I both listened to it. We really enjoyed it. But he spoke about the ending of The Last of Us, Joel's choice when he chooses to go in there and lay down bodies in order to save Ellie, and to take this choice not only away from her, but to take a potential cure for humanity away from the world. He talked about that from two perspectives. Number one, the perspective of an outside person, someone with little to no emotional connection to the person at all. In this case, of course, being Ellie. Of course, to an outside person, I think that choice is a no-brainer. Make the sacrifice, save humanity. She won't feel any pain, as Marlene tried to explain to Joel when he first kind of heard the news of what was happening when she said she's being prepped for surgery, and humanity will be saved. But the second perspective is the one that is kind of the big theme of the game and the show, of the story of a whole, which is, as a parent, there's only one logical choice there, and it happens to be the emotional one, the path that Joel chose, the path of preserving your child until your very last breath with and by any means possible. And of course, that's where we see Joel, and it was brutal. I mean, I wondered how they would adapt that scene from the video game into the show, and it was slightly different. I don't know.
Figured. Slow motion with some quick cutscenes.
Well, but the vibe was a little bit different. In the game, it's more, and obviously I know that there's a logistical difference between the game, because obviously you have to keep somebody engaged in gameplay. But in this, it was almost like they didn't even stand a chance against Joel. I mean, Joel was in there.
The game and the show?
No, in the TV adaptation. In the game, there's a little bit more of a battle between the two. Even when Joel finally gets inside of the operating room and he kills Dr. Anderson, and he picks her up, and he's going, "Come on, baby girl," and he picks her up, and there was more of a shift from fighting so hard to get to her, and then kind of an emotional parental, almost like he's just pleading to get her out of there alive, and they're being shot at, and it's emotional. The build-up to him saving Ellie in the TV series was incredibly cold.
It was like a switch, dog.
It was. He went from a concerned parent to just a brutal murderer, essentially. I mean, that's what he is in this scene.
He turned into straight up Desert Storm.
He did.
Like, he went full metal jacket on these bitches.
Yeah, and it seemed very cold and very heartless, and even the music kind of echoed that. It seems like Joel is almost losing a piece of his humanity in order to preserve Ellie.
It felt hopeless.
It did. It felt
for the Fireflies. so to speak.
Yes, it was just a little bit of a different vibe, and it worked for the show. I think it differed from the game, but it did what it needed to do. But let's take a look at some of the elements of the episode that made Joel's decision all the more interesting. The first of which being Ellie's current mental state at the beginning of the episode and Joel's response to that. In this finale, we find her in a very different mental state than we have before. I mean, if you think of everything that just happened with David, I mean, David was a manipulative, disgusting human being who was being kind of a perv to her and who was trying to corrupt her even more, who was trying to bring her into this nasty world that he had created to be his sick equal in a way. So that whole experience, the experience of almost being eaten, murdered and eaten, to the point where you have to kill people brutally to escape that. You also have what happened with Henry and Sam. I mean, she tried to save Sam when he was infected, and she really, that whole scene was terrifying and very sad in and of itself as well. But and you can share your thoughts on this as well, Miguel, but at the beginning of the episode, we find Ellie very, very much in her own head, and she's scared. She seems scared. She seems like she has got a really, really big burden, and she doesn't know quite how to handle that. It's the first time we see her act more as a little girl than as an adult,
I think the reason why she feels like it's such she has a different pace is because in her head she thinks that I feel like it could go either way. Either that she knows this will be like she is the only hope, or maybe the fact that she didn't think that she was going to be the cure because of what happened with the young kid in I think episode 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yeah. So I think after that, I think she has some level of second guessing on whether or not she actually is the cure, because
I think there's guilt there too.
Yeah. And you think because she couldn't save him?
I think there's guilt for not being able to save Sam, and as Joel said, I don't think it works that way. But there's this need, and she even says that after the awesome giraffe scene when Joel is like, we don't have to do this. Like we can turn around and go back to Jackson, and we can forget that all of this ever happened. We can just leave it alone. And I mean, she flat out says this has to mean something. She is so desperate after everything that they've been through, after everybody that they've lost, that she's lost Henry and Sam, her mom, Tess, everything that she's gone through fighting infected and losing Riley. She feels a desperate need for her life to mean something, for this journey to mean something. And of course she never gets to. I think that's another thing is when Joel lies to her at the end, he's trying to cushion that. He knows that not only is she going to be horrified by the fact that he just murdered a ton of people, but I think he knows that it's going to shatter her, knowing that it, I don't know. I think he did what any parent would do. And I think a lot of parents would tell you that they would lie to their kid to protect them. And I think it's that same type of thing. I think even if you look at Joel at the beginning of the episode, not only is Ellie kind of acting very different than usual, but Joel is acting very different than usual. It's almost like a flip-flop from the beginning of the series, because Joel was kind of cold. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to share feelings. He was like, I don't want to talk. Like, I don't, this isn't personal. And, he's trying to make her laugh. Chef Boyardee, like he's trying to make her laugh. He's trying to get her to show some kind of emotion. And of course, she's not having it. She's traumatized. She feels guilt. She feels fear. She's nervous. She's anxious. There's a lot of things going on in her head right now. She's very much wrapped up in her own head when we find her at the beginning of the episode. And then you also have what I kind of feel like was the moment of their arc and their characters. When Joel reveals towards the beginning of the episode that the scar on his head was actually due to a suicide attempt. And the moment that they're talking about that, and Ellie says, I'm glad that didn't work out. And he says, me too. And she says, I guess time heals all wounds. And then he finally looks at her and says, it wasn't time that did it. And the both of them share this look. And that look just like almost brought tears to my eyes, because it's like, oh my God, there it is. Like, they're saying I love you without saying I love you. Like, it's just kind of an unspoken, like, they're both too cool for school, and neither of them would ever say anything that emotional.
Yeah.
But it's just, that moment was like, there it is. Like, that's the culmination of all of this. Like, that father-daughter parental, but also best friend relationship is there. And I think that is the moment that the light switched on in Joel, and he accepted it. Because I think for a while he was afraid to accept the fact that he cared about her. I think he wouldn't let himself feel that emotion. But when he finally acknowledges that it wasn't time that did it, that Ellie saved him, that Ellie brought him back from that cold, heartless, emotional state that he was in, that is the moment where the light switch slipped in him to say, oh my God, I can't let anything happen to her. Like, that's the reason that he makes the choice that he makes at the end of the episode, when he decides to save Ellie from her fate with the Fireflies. So that was maybe in my top 3 favorite moments of the entire first season.
Mm-hmm. And what a short season, my guy. Like, honestly, like, I get where people's criticisms may arise in this season, where like they say like it just seemed way too short. But I think it just goes to show like how much more, like you said in the previous conversation, of like how much more people want out of this. And just seeing as like, because I've never played the games, and I know it's really hard for me to make an opinion on it without playing it, but I feel like I'm justified in saying this. Like, the video games, I don't know, when you look at the show, it seems almost kind of rushed how their relationship slowly kept building.
There's a lot we don't see.
There's a lot that we didn't see, and I think I've read reports of saying like Ellie saves Joel, like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 more times in the game than she does in the show. And there's a lot more nuances and a lot more moments where Joe shows like a tender heart towards Ellie, and it's not just like it's not like a flip of the switch, so to speak, but like, because obviously there was moments where Joe had a tender heart for Ellie, like whenever he was talking to Tommy, and whenever he would have these panic attacks and sudden like rage moments, I guess. But I've listened to other people's podcasts and videos on it, and they just said that there's a lot more complex scenes in the video games that really showcase their, I guess, growth and their emotion with one another, to the point where when the video game version happens, when Joel ends up like going on his killing spree, it's almost like bro, yes, like save Ellie. But I think in this one felt a little bit more on the lines on the show. It felt a little bit more along the lines of like, you really do get the idea like maybe Joel is wrong in this. Like he's definitely wrong in this.
Yeah.
So like that debate is like more prominent now because just how short it was. Because like I know for a lot of people, they probably didn't feel the level of connection with one. They still did, but they understood what needed to happen, kind of thing.
Right.
As compared to the games where you just like you have hours of like hardcore like just
you get to sit and marinate with these characters for longer periods of time. Yeah, I can see why people would say that. It is a very abbreviated version, but I still think at the end of the day they hit all the beats that they needed to.
It's like
to make it work.
Oh my God, this season it's like the Spark Notes of the fucking game. No,
no, it's I don't know if I'd say it's Spark Notes. I think it's more than that. But I think the other piece of this, and you made a great point a minute ago saying that the show kind of really implies that Joel is wrong, which I think is interesting because there are different ways you can look at it. Again, going back to Neil Druckmann in the perspectives thing. I loved Marlene's moment of realization when Joel wakes up after being hit and Ellie is being prepped for surgery, and Marlene is talking to Joel about the cure, and she's explaining how they're going to use Ellie to create a potential cure. And I loved her reaction or her moment of realization and fear after Joel wakes up and she realizes that, holy crap, he's got an emotional attachment and a connection to her now. And Marlene and Joel obviously have a history together, but she says that Joel is the one person that she never wanted to owe a debt to, which solidifies the fact that she's scared of Joel. She knows what Joel is capable of. She realizes
because
his
it's not
violent
really talked
potential.
About. It's like alluded. It's alluded the entire game or the entire show of like.
It's alluded to with
this
Tommy.
Man has done some stuff.
Because Tommy even says, you know what I mean? Like he talked about the fact that they used to do bad things and that they were a part of a bad crowd, and that Tommy was like, I had to get away from that. I mean, it's very obvious that Joel has an extremely violent side, and the thing is, he's good at it. Like, it's not even like he just goes into rage mode and he sees red. He's good at it. Like
it's like the second he goes into rage mode, like your difficulty level just fucking drops to like 0 for him.
It's like it's effortless. When he was making his way picking off the Fireflies in the hospital, it was literally effortless. There was zero emotion there. It was one goal, one mindset: get Ellie out of that hospital alive, and that was it. And you know, Marlene has always tried to be on his good side and not stay on the wrong side of things until now. Now it's unavoidable, and Joel is wholeheartedly connected to Ellie, which she knows. She realizes that, and she knows that he loves her. And at the end of the day here,
I feel like whenever Marlene saw how Joel was getting connected, I could see like Marlene kind of thinking in her head. She was like, "Oh, he fucked up.
He's gonna try something." Like,
yeah, like because you know how like whenever they finally were set off, Marlene was like, "Hey, Joel, don't fuck this up."
Yeah,
at that moment, she was like, "Oh, Joel's gonna fuck this up."
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, she realizes though. You know, she even makes the point where she says, you know, I had 5 men whose sole job was to protect me, and I barely made it here alive. Like, but somehow you and this little girl made it across the entire country together and somehow managed to make it here fine, you know? And it's just, she realizes the fact that he is dangerous because he loves her. He loves Ellie. And at the heart of the story, that's what The Last of Us is. It's love. It's how love is a very extreme emotion. Love is beautiful and tender, and it can be nurturing. Again, leaning towards the parental thing, but love can also be extremely ugly, and even the most gruesome, unimaginable things can be rooted in love, which is ultimately where we find Joel in this episode. That's when we see him snap, and he moves into, like we talked about earlier, that seeing red. He's in rage mode. He's just in nothing else matters. Angry, violent, determined, laser focused on one thing, making sure that she gets out of there alive, even if it means losing some of his humanity along the way. Even if it means
his humanity was fucking gone.
Even if it means
Marlene said, please no, and a dog just straight up just capped her. Dude, for real, like this man literally like interrogated beat the shit out of 2 people and interrogated them brutally with like -2 health points.
He flat out said, "I don't have time for this."
Yeah,
like I
was talking about like the like whenever Ellie was kidnapped
David's people.
David's people, and like the fact that he was able to do that was literally like an infected wound in his stomach, like on the brink of death.
It's whack.
Like imagine like they just and the Firefly just happened to give him like a health boost, and that was like a big mistake because now he's like fully in rage mode. Like I don't know, man. Like this season finale, granted how short it is, I know a lot of people complain about the time span of it, but I mean, they played no games with this. I mean, it was
Right.
from what I've read in the reports that it is definitely like there are scenes in the season finale that are literally ripped straight from the video game, and that gives it
It is.
its
Yeah.
due justice.
It is.
So even though it was like 45 minutes, dear Lord, like you saw Pedro Pascal play as a rage for Joel. I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Well, the thing is, like we just talked about with Love, Joel has realized he's lost one daughter, and he's not about to let it happen again by any means necessary. And the ending of The Last of Us, both the video game and the TV show, poses an interesting question. If you put yourself in Joel's shoes, if it were your daughter or your son or your spouse or your mom or dad or your best friend, would you be able to make that sacrifice? Could you accept that it was just going to happen for the common good? And could you accept the fact that this is the only way for the world to at least gain back a piece of what it used to be? Or do you take the emotional choice, the emotional path, and you're like, no way. I know as a parent, me being a new parent, I don't know if I could. I don't. So
I'd rip the shit out of the Fireflies. Fuck them Fireflies, dog.
It's an
I don't
interesting
like the
question.
Fireflies.
But see, it's not even the Fireflies. It's realizing the fact that humans lose. Humanity loses. The human race loses if you choose your person, your child, your spouse, your whoever over that. I mean, you are
Humanity already
choosing
lost, dog.
one person compared to potentially millions, and it's so interesting. It's such an interesting concept. It's such an interesting question. Answering that as a parent, there'd be no way. It's crazy, and it's such a fantastic ending to a really, really fantastic story. And as always, we want to hear your thoughts. So please be sure to leave us a comment if you would down below. Let us know, was Joel right? Do you think he should have taken the moral path or the emotional path, the parental path, as he finally did in the show? Please let us know in the comments down below. Guys, thanks so much for spending a little bit of your time with us. New episodes of our shows premiere every week at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at LTM Podcast KY, and we will see you this Saturday for episode number 23 of Purely and Simply Evil, as we take a deep dive into A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. So we'll talk to you soon, guys. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you. Peace.
Peace.
When you're lost in the darkness, look for the light.
If you tell me to look for the light, I'm punching the jaw.